Drive podcast.
Welcome back. Yet another week. I say the same thing every single week, but this is episode 188. This is your boy East Coast Trev, and I'm joined by my good buddy, Mr. Madman Mardick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate
Anytime,
it.
bud. I can't believe you still let me go on here, to be honest.
Yeah, well, hey, what else? What do I have any other option?
Probably not.
I mean, it seems like people like you more than they like me anyway, so what do you need me for?
I find that hard to believe, but...
Well,
judging character, clearly.
Is that what it is? It could be. I mean, it's the way that it goes, dude.
Sometimes I can't believe people actually listen to this shit.
Well, I don't disagree with you there. I mean, why would you want to listen to us just ramble about absolutely nothing? And after 188 episodes,
just keep sending it, bud.
Do you know that? You know what this means, though, right? 188 episodes. No, you're not going to guess this, but it's one episode closer to turkey hunting season.
Dude, they're firing up, bud. I don't know if it's earlier, if I'm just noticing it, but I've been hearing birds gobbling earlier than I normally do.
Do you know what? They may be doing such a thing, but I just try not to find them because it would just get me too cranked up way too early, and I just can't have it. And come to find out with it, dude, we have this weekend coming up is Easter. And then the following weekend is youth hunting here in Connecticut already, dude. I mean, we're about to kick right into it. We do have a youth hunter. We're going to take Steve Carpenter's son out.
Yep.
Matt Weddish is going to join us and film that for ROTV. So we're super excited about that. And then Everett, I got to punch a date with him hopefully the following weekend. And then it kicks right into our season on the 26th of April. I mean, it's here, dude. I mean, we're in the heart of it. I mean, Maryland's going to kick off here on the 18th. We just solidified some dates with Will Jimeno. He's going to come up and join us on the 10th, 11th, and 12th to try and kill his Connecticut bird. I mean, dude, it's here, and I didn't think that it was going to come this fast, but I'm super, super excited.
Yeah, dude. It's so funny because I never used to get fired up for turkey season. It was just one of those things where I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll go. And then every year it's like I get a little bit more amped, and this year I'm just fired up.
I know.
My snoot is hanging low right now.
The snoot is hanging. And the thing is that you know, for the first time, well, not the first time, but you're out trying to locate birds on public and just putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. And I never thought I would see that out of somebody who's a deer hunter.
Yeah, well, you got to do what you got to do. The grind never stops.
The grind never stops. You got to out-hunt your neighbor.
I don't know if it's just me, though. They're harder and harder to find. I don't know if it's we can get into a big debate if the population is down or what, but, I mean, I feel like I used to be able to pull into, like, a public land parking lot, rip a call, and I could hear 3 gobblers in 3 different directions. And now I'm not even finding, they're spread out, and I think that's why I spend so much time finding birds, because I'm trying to find as many as I possibly can to go back and hunt once the season opens, and they're not easy to find. They're not. No, and they're not behind every tree. That's for sure.
No, and I mean, we could talk about how the population has decreased because the increase in tags, or we've had some we can't really always point it towards that, but it could be, the increase in wet because they are ground nesting birds.
Less predators.
More people. I mean, you can hunt pests. I mean, there's 1,000,001 things that can definitely put into it, but it's just, you just got to hunt harder. I mean, those birds are still there. You're not seeing the big flocks, but, the comeback of the population here is been great. Some, across the board, southern, south, north, east, west, they're all having problems with the turkey population. So is the numbers really of increase of tags really affecting it? Who honestly knows? And,
no.
I think that they're one of those birds that, like, the hen sits on the nest, and if they lose that clutch, they're going to have another one. It might be less and less and less as they have to replenish that clutch, but they are still having they're still having a clutch, so they're going to survive. And then trapping on top of it too. I mean, there's 1,000,001 things. I mean, I could go on forever, but I just don't really want to do that. Do you have anything for Killer's Corner this week, bud?
I don't really. A shout out to Alexandra Fagan. She's always crushing it. I think she posted up a beaver the other day.
Yeah, she was helping someone on a trap line. Did a great thing.
And then, speaking of Matt Weddish, we got a little event to go to Thursday night.
Yep.
At Stewart's.
So it'll be tonight.
Oh, yeah, tonight in podcast land.
Yes.
Stewards of the Land Brewery in Northford, Connecticut, 6 p.m. tonight till 8 o'clock. Matt's putting on a seminar. It's a great seminar. Me and Trev have attended it. We probably could just do the seminar for him. We know it so well.
Point,
but I wouldn't miss it for the world. It's always good to hang out with Matt and meet and greet, and you never know who you're going to meet at these events, and it's always a good time. So we'll shoot up there and support him. If anybody wants to stop by, we will be there.
And on the Killer's Corner, I do want to congratulate Josh Stubbs on his Osceola in Florida with Sean, with Snake Catcher Sean. Well, I don't even think his name's Snake Catcher anymore, but Sean Russell.
Snake Snatcher.
But, yeah, huge thanks to those guys. And while we're at it, dude, let's give them a huge thanks. Nor'easter Game Calls, nor'eastergamecalls.com. We are also presented by huntworthgear.com or Huntworth Camo. They are the title sponsor of the Outdoor Drive and the official camo of the Outdoor Drive. Make sure to go and get your Durham pants and some of your light camo for the early season. Also, Zeus Broadheads, ZeusBroadheads.com or NewAirArchery.com to get your Zeus or your Hera over there. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it. And last but not least, Bow Hunters United, and they are going to take it away with News from Your Cruise. All right, guys, why don't we buckle up and see what's going on in the world of news with Mr. Mike Salter.
Hey everyone, we're going to start this one off in Florida and a couple bills that could impact sporting dog owners. Senate Bill 1492 and House Bill 1581 define a breeding female dog as any dog that has not been spayed and is more than 6 months old, and define any location in which an individual owns at least one breeding female dog as a dog breeding facility. Ridiculous, I know, but that's how it's written. So, for any of you hunters with breeding female dogs, you would have to register as a breeder, pay additional fees, and would be subject to inspection. There is an exemption for private dog owners that allows for one litter of puppies for personal benefit, but the owners must prove there was no intent to breed and sell litter, so good luck with that. So for all of you sportsmen with your waterfowl, upland, shed, and tracking dogs, reach out to your legislators against these bills in Florida. Now to Oklahoma, where House Bill 2862 has been proposed to grant sole CWD management authority, including care, testing, and regulation, to the state's Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, and eliminating authority and management programs currently in place with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. The Department of Wildlife Conservation currently has the necessary authority to manage and surveil the disease. The bill would remove that authority and grant it to an agency without the purview to manage the wild elk and deer populations. To reach out in opposition of this bill, you can find a link directly on the action alert on the National Deer Association's website. Now to Missouri, where shed hunting is underway, and Department of Conservation is reminding the public that all deer antlers found with a skull plate attached must be reported to local conservation agent within 24 hours of the shed being located if you intend to keep it. This is also so the agent can document the antler and skull plate being found and to confirm that the deer was not taken illegally. Now to Michigan, where apparently some hunters have been using melatonin gummy bears in their black bear bait piles, hoping that a drowsy bear would be an easier bear to tag. The DNR received complaints about hunters using this tactic, but apparently the problem is not widespread. To make sure that this practice does not catch on, the DNR is proposing new language that specifically bans, and I quote, stupefying substances in bait piles. The regulation change would make anything that renders a bear unable to think clearly, groggy, or insensible off limits. The additional rule is among 11 proposed changes that were developed from the Bear Forum, an advisory group consisting of 15 organizations, plus the DNR Bear Working Group and the U.S. Forest Service representatives. Also in Michigan, the DNR's Becoming an Outdoors Woman program is offering a turkey hunt workshop in Cass City for women and girls. The weekend program will be held on May 12th and 13th for those who would like to learn new skills or improve upon their ability. This is a free workshop open to any properly licensed woman hunter, age 10 or older, and no experience is required. On May 12th, participants will gain knowledge of turkey biology, general turkey hunting techniques, turkey calls and calling, hunting ethics, general firearm safety, and shooting, and participants will be paired with a hunting mentor and set a field to hunt. On May 13th, participants will and mentors will meet early in the morning at the DNR's Cass City field office for breakfast, and will head out for a morning hunt. And after lunch, participants will have the opportunity to clean their turkeys. To participate, you will need a Michigan-based hunting license and turkey license, which is available as an apprentice option, and needs to be purchased prior to the workshop for Hunt Unit ZB, hunt number 0117. The deadline to register is May 1st, but registration is limited to 14 participants, and the first-time BOW Turkey Workshop class information and registration are available at michigan.gov/BOW. Now to Utah, where many wildlife management areas in northern Utah have been closed to public access to protect wintering deer and other big game. The WMAs were scheduled to reopen April 8th, but the Division of Wildlife Resources is extending their closure through April 30th. The DWR is also closing additional WMAs in central Utah till the end of April to protect wintering big game. The closures are due to the DWR seeing variations in fawn and doe survival throughout the state, depending on the severity of snowfall and winter conditions. Lastly, to some national news, where the Department of the Interior is posting a proposed public lands rule in the Federal Register. The proposal is aimed at guiding balanced management of public lands and providing the Bureau of Land Management the tools to improve the resiliency of public lands, conserve important wildlife habitat and intact landscapes, plan for development, and better recognize unique cultural and natural resources on public lands. The proposed rule is open for a 75-day public comment period, and BLM will be hosting 5 informational forums to discuss details of the rule. This could impact hunting and fishing on these public lands, and anyone who utilizes the public lands is encouraged to review the rule and make comments in favor of sportsmen and women, as I am sure those opposed to hunting will be commenting on the use of public lands through this process. So as always, if you have any news to send along, it'd be greatly appreciated. Reach out to me at Mike Salter on Facebook or bearded_bowhunter21 on Instagram. With that, enjoy the rest of your ride.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate you, buddy. The news is always awesome. And also, thank you to Bowhunters United for partnering up and taking care of News to Your Cruise with Mr. Mike Salter himself. Well, dude, I hope that everybody goes and gets himself a pen and paper, and you're going to need it for this one.
Yeah. Speaking of decline of turkey population, I'm sure that TSS has something to do with it.
Yeah, it probably does.
No, this was a great podcast, man. I geeked out with this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and so did Aaron, and some of the information in here, all you guys that are unsure of what TSS actually is, what it does, how it works. Mm-hmm. Aaron really brings it down to the basics and lets you know the reasons for using TSS. It's not about shooting them at 1,000 yards. It's about making an ethical kill up close and filling the freezer
efficiently.
So let's let Aaron take it away, and let's geek out on TSS loads in turkey season.
Send it.
All right, we're back on the phone with Aaron Satterfield from Satties LLC. What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know it's the heart of the turkey season for you, so you're probably the busiest of all time this time of year.
It is. Yeah, it's been some pretty short nights.
I can only imagine. And early mornings, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's turn this key, man. We'll put this thing right in four-wheel drive. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. My name's Aaron Satterfield. I'm the owner and creator of Satties LLC, Custom Ammunition and Gun Works. We offer custom tungsten turkey loads. In the fall time, we'll be offering waterfowl loads as well. In various gauges currently right now, we offer 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 410, and next year we'll be introducing 16 and 28 gauge. We also offer custom rifle ammunition and various gun works, a lot of general gun repair, a lot of custom gun repair, custom gun modifications and stuff like that. And that's going to be growing as we continue to open up our shop and get more machines in and stuff like that. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we're located in Southwest Ohio, just about an hour north of Cincinnati, 45 minutes west of Dayton. Originally, I'm a West Virginia boy. Born and raised in West Virginia, spent some time out in Oklahoma, and kids weren't getting any younger, neither were the parents. So we had an opportunity to move back to the East Coast to get back closer to family, and here we are.
We won't hold it to get against you that you're from West Virginia. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
What do you got against the Mountaineers?
Nothing at all. The turkey hunting out there is phenomenal.
It is. I'm looking forward to heading back that way with my boy this year. My boy, he just turned 12 years old. Looking forward to getting him his first bird. So,
oh, that's even better. Absolutely even better. That's a great thing about turkey hunting with youth and stuff like that. It just makes it so nice. And it's so easy, right? I mean, it's not deer hunting.
Everybody has cabin fever. You're itching to get out. It's that you go through that brutal void of into deer season and waiting on spring to break. Man, everything's starting to green up. Birds start hammering. You can't beat it.
No, absolutely not. So let's turn this key. Where did it all start for you that this business ended up starting? Like, how did this all start? Like, obviously you've had a background of something before to make this happen, or?
Yeah. Whenever, won't try to burn your ear up too much, but actually, I was, pretty much born and raised in a family-owned gun shop in West Virginia. My grandfather owned a gun shop. Kind of grew up behind the counter of that. For quite a while. And then just over the years, once, graduated, high school, college, we ended up moving out to Oklahoma in 2005. And we were out there for about 10 years. My ultimate goal was always to be able to take over my grandfather's gun shop. That's something that I always wanted to do whenever he was ready to hang it up. But unfortunately, while I was halfway across the United States in Oklahoma, he fell ill and passed away. And I knew that the opportunity to be able to take over his gun shop was unrealistic. It wasn't an option for us to be able to move back and, and pick up where he left off. And that ultimately is what kind of triggered, I didn't want the death of my grandfather to be the death of my passion. And, so I started looking around at options whenever I was out in Oklahoma. I didn't want to lose the opportunity to be able to stay in that trade. And ended up, lo and behold, ended up running into some, general gunsmithing classes and stuff like general machining classes at Mid-America Tech School out in Oklahoma. Ended up taking a couple of them. Long story short, the gunsmithing, one of the gunsmithing instructors that was there happened to be the director of the professional gunsmithing school at Murray State College in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. And he invited me to apprentice with him at his own, he's a custom rifle maker. He invited me to apprentice with him. So I apprenticed with him for a couple years. And then that eventually rolled into, he wanted me to, he goes, you need to be teaching this. And so I became an adjunct instructor at Murray State College, School of Gunsmithing, teaching general gun repair, intro to AutoCAD, intro to CNC machining, custom rifle making, custom 1911s. And just kind of went from there. Did that for about 3.5 years. And I was faced with the decision on whether or not to move my family back, closer to family to the East Coast, or I was offered a full-time position to be able to teach at the gunsmithing school. And, it was bittersweet. I took the opportunity to get my family back closer to family. And, and so unfortunately in that same breath, I kind of felt like I lost my, I considered that a dream job. I really did. Those gunsmiths that we molded and, taught in the gunsmithing program, those are the ones that you see that go and work for the Department of Defense, Smith & Wesson Performance Center. We take in, the gunsmithing school took in 20 gunsmiths a year. And it was all by interview basis. So they were hand selected students for the gunsmithing program. and they go on to, to work in those prestigious, positions. And, but I had the opportunity to move back to the East Coast and, I've always been involved in, in the gunsmithing portion. I've always been around firearms. Just as I was growing up, got into reloading, the ammunition side of things and stuff. And just little by little, I mean, that's how my knowledge grew. And especially with being that, kind of, deaded into the industry, and with that many connections within the industry, that's, it really helped. It really helped, position me to where I am today.
That's awesome, man. So then it turned into the whole reloading and all that you are now doing for turkey season and spending all of your nights wide awake making turkey loads.
Right. right. Exactly. So
there's like a whole science behind it though, right? Like it's not just...
There is, I love talking to people, anybody that knows me knows that, my phone is always open, so whenever I'm at the reloading bench, I'm constantly on my phone. My wife laughs at me, because she's like, you're worse than a girl. And, but I'm constantly answering questions. The way I look at it is, and I always looked at it, the same way as gunsmithing. It's a trade. And if you don't share the wealth and the knowledge of the trade, what happens to that trade? It dies. And that's, and that's something that I'm here to help. To me, it's not rocket science. It's not then, anybody who's willing to take the step to be able to get into reloading, they can do it. They really can. Unfortunately, a lot of people, there's not enough hours in the day to be able to do the things that they enjoy, let alone do additional things, like reloading. It is a time consuming process, especially if you have OCD. So, it gives you an opportunity, for your OCD to shine. But I tell you what, it'll consume your day as well, so.
Absolutely. Steve, you know it more, so why don't you ask him some questions?
Well,
because you have a lot on your mind about it. That's the other thing.
The main thing I want to dive into is TSS. Everybody talks about it. I don't know that everybody fully understands what it is, how it works, why it's so much better than lead, what you gain from it, the pros and the cons. I can talk about it. I'm sure you can explain it way better. If you wouldn't mind just diving right into that.
A lot of questions that we get, that people aren't familiar with TSS. TSS, tungsten super shot. And what that is, it's a tungsten pellet that's extremely spherical, very symmetrical. And you'll see some of the things, for example, lead, bismuth, heavy shot, a lot of those, they'll have a general roundness, but, once they go through, the choke and get constricted, there is a possibility of, becoming deformed. And, if law of physics, anything that's flying through the air that has essentially a deformed pattern, you will start lacking consistency. And with tungsten, the two main things with tungsten, that people should really be aware of is energy and penetration. So whenever you start looking at tungsten and the weight of it compared to lead, steel, bismuth, heavy shot, all of those other variants, it is the heaviest payload, that you can get in pellets. So the overall weight in it, and you'll see it on many of the boxes, in the stores, 18 G per cc, 18 grams per cc, and that's the density of it. So whenever you compare that to, let's say, lead, which is a little over 11.3 grams per cc. Then you have bismuth, 9.6 grams per cc. Okay. Then you have steel, 7.8 grams per cc. Okay. So whenever you compare all of those to that, tungsten is extremely, extremely dense compared to the others. So if you look at your typical copper-plated lead shot, you're looking at you're almost 2 times denser than that. And and hey, don't get me wrong, and I'll always tell anyone that, if it ain't broke, don't mess with it. If you're happy, and a lot of people get the ill perception of, it's a fad, it's a new thing. And don't get me wrong, I've killed birds with heavy shot. I've killed birds with copper plated lead. I've also, good Lord, you see what Longbeard does.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I'm really surprised that there hasn't been another company that has really competed against Winchester, with their shot lock technology. It really is. It's a game changer. You can't knock Longbeard for what it is. But whenever you're dealing with tungsten, whenever you start comparing the differences between the lead and the tungsten and all of the other options, you start looking at pellet count. Okay. So if you are able to take a pellet that is 2 times denser than that of, let's say, lead. Okay. And you look at the amount, so even if you weight it out onto a scale, okay. And that's what we do whenever we reload. And if you were to look at lead and let's say number 6 shot, because that's a pretty standard 1.56 shot, for Longbeard, a 1 ounce load of number 6 shot lead is going to give you 222 pellets, and a 1 ounce load of number 9s in tungsten is going to give you 362 pellets. Okay, so you have a substantial amount more pellets in that. But what people also need to understand is the 9 shot in tungsten is still carrying as much, if not more, energy than 6 shot in lead. And people have a hard time perceiving that because it's uncommon for everyone to think about using 9 shot. 9 shot, growing up, you guys probably remember that 9 shot. What'd you use 9 shot for?
Clay pigeons.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. You shot clays with. You didn't shoot anything living with it. And now you're always talking about 12 gauge 3.5 inch mags. The bigger the better. If I'd shoot 4-inch mags if they made it. For turkey. And now you're talking about, okay, now you have guys going out there with a 410 with a 7/8 ounce load of 9.5s and dropping birds legitimately at 40 plus yards,
which is insane.
It's not logical for a lot of people. First of all, people will ask, "You're hunting turkey with 410s?" Yes. How far did you shoot that bird? Yes.
Right.
And it can hit. People aren't, the people that aren't familiar with it and know the science behind it, it doesn't make sense because it's not what we're used to.
Absolutely.
And you're also getting a lot of people that are saying, why would you want to shoot them that far? And it's not about shooting them that far. It's everybody wants to shoot them at 10 steps, but
exactly. Look, it's funny because me and my buddies, we always talk about this. Everybody wants a bird to start their shotgun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Come right down the barrel,
please.
But I tell you what, the thing of it is I'm really, I get really busy and stuff, and I'll be honest, That's the only, that's the double-edged sword about being in this industry. When are you the busiest? When the season is in, and, so our time, my time in the field is limited. And especially, I have 3 kids, but my youngest is 12 years old. He's eaten up with hunting, and the little bit of time that I get the opportunity to be able to take him out, I don't want to have the limitations of my gun or of regardless of what I'm using. If a bird hangs up at 50 for whatever reason, maybe I suck at calling, which, I'm not the greatest, but I get it done. Or if something happens, and that bird hangs up and we know that the gig is up, I want him to be able to have the opportunity to send it, and knowing the firearm, knowing what the ammunition can do, and knowing, spending the time and pattern testing your gun. So knowing your limitations, and within those limitations, if you're confident in that shot, send it. It's no different than, I'm sure you guys are, shoot archery, same with that. There's a reason why, a lot of guys that shoot archery and stuff, we step back 50, 60, 70 yards, because guess what? That 40-yard shot is like clockwork now. Mm-hmm. It's no different with firearms.
Well, it's the same as, it's not even about the distance too, but being ethical too, an ethical shot. Like when you shoot a bird at 20 yards with tungsten over lead, what it does to that animal is instantaneously.
I'll tell you this, for all them guys that say you can't stop the flop, they ain't never shot TSS because they don't flinch. They don't flinch. Amen.
Because, Steve, I tell you what, that was one of the things that whenever I started getting into this, and I really started, just reloading for friends and stuff like that, before I, started going, commercially, that's the one thing that my friends always said, whenever they started getting into TSS and they started shooting birds with it, they're like, it's unbelievable. They're like, you're used to shooting a bird and it flopping and flopping. You got a neck stomp, and hold it there. It's very uncommon, now to have to do that.
Feathers are going everywhere. All that, people are getting stabbed with spurs and all kinds of stuff. And that goes right back into what we were talking about, about the, like the law of physics and, of just, density, energy, penetration, all of that. That's what it ties into, a good analogy, that we've always talked about is, if, the like lead versus TSS. Okay. Well, tell one of your buddies to step back 20 feet and you're going to throw a tennis ball and a baseball at them. Which one would you rather get hit with? A tennis ball, right? Because it's less dense. Mm-hmm. It's not going to hurt as bad. And that's the analogy, between lead and TSS. I had heard somewhere along the lines, maybe I don't know if this is true or not, maybe you can clarify it, but I'm under the impression that it's about equivalent to 2 times the shot size. So like would a 6 in lead be equivalent to an 8 in TSS? Is that pretty accurate? Or
yeah, it's actually 9 shot is more equivalent. 9 shot is more equivalent to a number 6.
So it's almost three shot sizes.
Yeah, and that's and that's a good point. I'm glad that you brought that up because and by all means, I'll load whatever the customer wants, and there's a lot of pattern testing involved, because if that's one of the things that I enjoy as well too. Yes, we do have our, my family, we have our bread and butter loads, that we offer. But one of the things that I enjoy doing too is getting a call from a customer, from let's say, Maine, Connecticut, something like that. A state, yeah, exactly, right. A state that has shot size restrictions, and taking the opportunity to be able to work up a custom load for that individual and pattern test it, and send them the patterns and make sure that they're comfortable with what with what we're getting, and before we even load up a batch for them.
So what would you? So if let's take it right through it. So if a customer is to reach out to you and say, all right, I want to change my gun to a 20 gauge because I'm going to shoot TSS, because sadly here we cannot shoot a 410, right?
I feel like you're talking about me.
Yeah, I know. Well, I went through the same thing. Years ago, and a lot of people are probably listening to this, and they're probably going, okay, so what do I do? So why don't you take us through right from the get-go, like a gentleman that comes to you and says, okay, I want to do this. I have this choke. Say I have, like myself, I have an Indian Creek 5.56. What would you do to get them to the shot where they need to go? And mind you, they have to be in a 7.5.
Yeah. The good thing is whenever you're dealing with something like that, so let's say, X customer says that, hey, it has to be 7s or larger. That's the smallest that we can go, which I have done that, for a couple customers this year. Typically, one of our bread and butter loads is the, 20 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 1 5/8 ounce load. It's what I personally use, but I use that in 9s. Okay. Now, knowing that I'm going to drop all the way down to 7s, which, to be honest, 7s and TSS hit like Thor's hammer. It's unreal. And, but what it is, whenever you start putting those larger pellets, you're talking about payload. Okay. So you're talking about a certain wad length, wad height, that goes into the hull. So what you start doing is you start, filling up, and there's a lot of trial and error to it, so you start filling, let's say I take the exact same load that I use, the 2 3/4, for example. I have a certain wad that I use in that. Within that wad, I'm able to fill up, 1 5/8 ounce of 9s, get it almost perfectly level with the wad on top, get a good tight compact crimp over top of it. So you should never be able to pick up a shell and shake it and it sound like a tambourine. That's not good. You're not going to get consistency out of that. So what you'll do is with 7s take up a lot more space. It's kind of like the old science project. Whenever you put rocks in, a jar, and then you pour sand in, then you pour this in, you can just keep on adding because it's filling all that void. You're doing the same thing in a hull. So whenever you try to put 1 5/8 ounce load of 7s in there, it's essentially not going to stack up the same way that the 9s are, because the 9s will stack in the hull a lot tighter, a lot denser. Okay. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to adjust probably to a different hull, or a different wad. I'm sorry. And go with a longer wad, okay, to be able to get that 1 5/8 ounce load. And you might end up having to step up to a 3-inch, okay? Or if the customer says, hey, I have this old, this old H&R smooth bore, that was handed down from my grandfather, I'd really like to shoot a bird with it this year, but it's only, chambered in 2 3/4 inch. Well, okay then. Well, we know our limitations now. Okay, it's got to be 2 3/4 inch. Let's see what we can do. And I had that this year, to where I literally the custom load, it was of number 7, it was 1.516 ounces. And that, I couldn't fit another BB in it. But that's what I came up with, and I said, here's the limitations, that we have. Here's what I have going on. This is packed as tight as I can possibly pack it, safely. And, and we went from there, and I asked him for approval. I said, are you okay with that? That will give you this many pellets. This will give you, I think it was like 320 something pellets. And he said, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, okay, well then I'll take it to the range and, I'll do some pattern testing on it. So did some pattern testing, 20, 30 and 40 yards, showed him the patterns, made sure that he was good with it. And he said, yeah, that looks That looks perfect. I gave him all of my gun information as well too. I said, here's what I have. I Stevens 301, 20 gauge, with an Indian Creek 555 choke or a Jeb's 555 headhunter. Tried both different chokes out. Here's what we got. Here's the consistency between the two chokes. Here's your ranges, 20, 30, and 40 yards. I'm not sure what type of hunting if you're going to be deep woods to where your maximum shot is going to be, but here's your patterns for those yardages. And sent them over to him. He's like, dude, those look awesome. I said, well, all right, well then we'll put them on the bench and we'll get them worked up for you. So
that's awesome. So they can come to you with pretty much anything, and you can design a shot if you need to, or you also have your good loads that you already know have proven to work well for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And and if anything too, one of the things with any custom load that we make, I'll always make sure that I take it to the range and test it first. It's not going to go out. It's not going to go out the door without being, tested live first.
So what are some of like your perfect rounds that you already make that like your honey rounds, the ones that you've already come up with?
Well, I tell you what, because we're working on a lot of things right now. I mean, as you guys know, we don't have a website up yet. We're currently working on the website. We're hoping to have that up and running here in a couple weeks. Working, social media. Honestly, it's been word of mouth. That's really, has gotten us taken off this year. And, but as we get the website up and running and stuff like that, we'll be able to offer online sales, all of that. But, really, if a customer comes to us and stuff, with a request, I mean, we'll entertain it, as long as it's not anything, astronomically crazy or if it's something that we're not set up for. Unfortunately, right now, our main focus, this year has been, the bread and butter, 12, 20 gauge and 410s. Ironically, it's kind of funny because I really think that this year has kind of been a telltale sign on, people really starting to realize what TSS is capable of, because last year, just from last year to this year, my least seller was 410s. This year, I sold out of 410s over a month ago. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it was just completely crazy. 410s, I was loading and selling 3-to-1 over 20 gauge and 12s. And, and unfortunately, I'm not sure what's going on with the supply chain, but for anyone who is looking for 410s or 410 components to be able to reload, good luck. You can't find them.
That's crazy.
I think we kind of touched about it earlier, but we kind of brushed over. I think people are starting to realize with the TSS, you can now carry those smaller guns that are lighter and easier to run in guns. So, like for me personally, I started with the 12 gauge, and it's huge. It's an autoloader. It's big. It's long. It's heavy. It smashes birds at ungodly distances. But I got to the point where I don't want to shoot them far. I want them sucking on the barrel, like you said. So if I have 20 gauge TSS available to me, why wouldn't I carry my little youth model 20 gauge instead of my giant 12 gauge, And I think that's what's happening with the Stevens 301 410. Unfortunately, 410 is not legal here in Connecticut, but for those guys where a Stevens 301 410 is legal, I mean, why wouldn't you want to carry that thing? Because it's so small and light and just a dream to run and gun with.
And man, I tell you what, I have, and even smaller than the Stevens 301, I have a little Rossi Tuffy Turkey. And that thing, you would swear you're carrying around a Nerf gun.
Right.
I mean, that's what it feels like. I mean, it's literally, it's like a 4.5 pound gun. And to be honest, carrying it in the woods, you don't even feel right, because you're used to, I have a 3.5 inch, 12 gauge, 28 inch barrel, I mean, hey, I'm vertically challenged. I'm 5'5", and that damn gun sticks 1.5 feet up over my head, And but that, and all of a sudden you grab one of those little Rossies or something like that, or a little Stevens 301, and man, you talk about a joy to carry. Right. I mean, shoulder fatigue and stuff like that, and it's fun.
Right.
Yeah, it really is.
If you think about it, like you said before, the Winchester Longbeard kind of changed the game there, aside from TSS. And prior to that, for the most part, I feel like 40 yards was a good max number for a turkey, with regular lead. 40 yards, we'll call it 45. The Longbeard XR came out, it was pushing 45, maybe even 50 yards, right? Well, max. Well, now you can now carry that 410 and you're still at that 40-yard max. So you're not increasing
you haven't
lost anything. All you're doing is gaining the smaller, easier to carry gun, but you're still same effective range.
So
right.
I used to turkey hunt with a 10 gauge.
Yeah,
because
I've had requests. I've had a handful of requests this year. Do you make 10 gauge 3.5? God bless them. For the love of God, I don't know what you're hunting, but
elephants.
But
you do not need that, dude. No.
And and that's what and that's what honestly, that's what I told the customers as well too. I'm like, look, if you're interested, I'm not set up to do 10 gauge right now, but if you want to entertain it, I'll entertain it. And I just told them, kind of jokingly, but a lot of seriousness, I'm like, you're not going to like the price, but, if that's truly what you want to shoot, we can take care of you, so, and that's one of the things as well too, that people need to understand, because a lot of people, they'll look at tungsten loads, the TSS loads, and they'll about choke on their coffee and spit it across the table, whenever you start talking about pricing. It is expensive. It is very expensive. It's expensive to load it. And, one of the things that we do is with reloading tungsten, the TSS is literally 95 to 97% of your cost. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. So that's why if I ever just, discuss pricing with customers and stuff like that, my pricing is based off of payload, because a 1 5/8 ounce load is a 1 5/8 ounce load in a 12 or a 20 gauge. A 2 ounce load is a 2 ounce load. A 2 1/4, 2.5 ounce load is that. Okay. So that's why I base my pricing off of payload, because that's 95% of it.
Yeah, and people don't understand what it actually costs, because it is expensive. But like in the waterfowl world, like I'm a big time waterfowl hunter, and we shoot TSS, or like I shoot Boss, right? And everybody goes, it's so expensive. But the thing is, we sea duck hunt, so when you use regular steel, I have to shoot 3 times to every one shot. You know what I'm saying? So in all reality, I'm saving money by shooting something better and patterned properly to my gun. And it's the same with turkey hunting. You literally, you're saving money because you don't have to shoot as much, and you're more accurate.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's one of the things, and you guys will see it, once we get through turkey season, we're switching gears to waterfowl. And, and you'll see that, we're going to be offering some tungsten, loads, but we're also going to be offering, tungsten variants as well. Yeah, exactly. We have, we're going to be offering, some more economical to solid TSS, but we're going to be offering, tungsten core, like 10 plated tungsten core, shot and stuff, that is equivalent to roughly around to that 12 to 13, grams per cc range, which is still really good. So to be equivalent to heavy shot or a little bit denser, than that. but it still has the characteristics of the TSS. It's still extremely spherical. So pattern consistency, density, penetration, you're going to get those same benefits.
And that's one of the things that we didn't talk about yet, and you just kind of you struck the chord with me, is that pattern density. There's less holes in your pattern by shooting something like this because it's more consistency with the shot. And as a waterfowler, that's very important in shooting.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what, if you want to, let's go ahead and dig into that a little bit, because, one of the biggest questions that people, whenever they do come to us, with an open mind, and they do ask, they're like, well, okay, you tell me what I should shoot. And I appreciate that, because I mean, we do a lot of homework on this. We're not just slapping loads together and throwing them out the door. And there's a couple of different things that we take into account whenever we determine, optimal shot size, and a lot of people wonder, they're like, why 9-shot, and let's just use the 20 gauge, for example. So what we do is whenever we start getting into some of these loads, you have to look at, pattern density and penetration. Okay. And kind of for turkey in particular, the rule of thumb on penetration for turkey is about 1.25 inches. Okay. 1.25 inches, roughly, about the thickness of a turkey head. There's been a lot of ballistic gelatin testing and stuff, for the pellets at, 1.25 inch penetration. So if you take, I call it my bread and butter load. As a matter of fact, we're probably going to call it that on the boxes whenever the boxes start coming out, the 20 gauge, the bread and butter. And, but it's the 2 3/4 inch, 1 5/8 ounce load. There's a lot of other companies and manufacturers that run that. The 1 5/8 ounce load is pretty much about as much as you're going to get out of the 20 gauge, without dropping off in velocity. Because if you're taking up that much hull space, you got to sacrifice it somewhere, and you don't want to sacrifice it from the powder charge. So, but what we do is if you take that 1 5/8 ounce load, and let's say 9s, for example, and rule of thumb, let's say 1,150 feet per second muzzle velocity. Okay. So, if we were to test 8s with that, okay, what we do is whenever you start looking at your pattern density, okay, because a lot of people, and not to bounce around a little bit, but a lot of people, whenever you see pattern tests on shotguns, there's specific diameters of circles that are drawn, and and you see people break it into the quadrants and counting the pellets in each quadrant and stuff like that. Well, the 10-inch circle is kind of the staple or the rule of thumb, in the turkey world, so even if you buy, the shoot and see, turkey targets and stuff like that, those circles will eventually work out to almost a 10-inch circle. So that's what you want to look at for your pattern density. With testing with 8s, okay, so you have a larger diameter pellet in 8s compared to 9s. You start, if you pattern test with 8s, I know that in that 1 5/8 ounce load, I can get about 220 pellets in a 10-inch circle at 40 yards, which is good. I'll take that all day long with a 20 gauge. But what that is if you start looking at, I want to, at range, okay, whenever I start pattern testing, if I can achieve that at 40 yards, I'll keep on stepping back to where I eventually get to the threshold of I drop below 100 pellets in a 10-inch circle. So that's kind of my threshold to where I know, okay, anything less than 100 pellets in a 10-inch circle, that's my threshold of cutting off on distance. Okay. So then you look at that compared to getting with 8s, how far in distance you get 1 1/4 inch penetration in ballistic gelatin. Okay. So within that, if I can get 1.25 inch penetration in ballistic gelatin with number 8s at 92 yards. Okay. Yeah. With the 20 gauge. We're still talking about a 20 gauge here. So, but what that is, I drop below 100 pellets in a 10-inch circle. So, and where I dropped below that in our testing was a little over 60 yards. Okay. So I can get 1.25 inch penetration at 92 yards, but my patterns start spreading out a little over 60 yards. So you got a 30-yard gap. Okay. In there. Okay. So let's take it to 8.5s now. All right. So now we're going a little bit smaller pellet. You're going to have a little bit more per, in the payload pellet count. 8.5s in our testing, we could get 270 pellets in a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. So about a 50 pellet count increase from 8s. So from 220 to 270 at 40 yards in a 10-inch circle. Still good. Okay. So now with our testing, we can get up 100 pellets within a 10-inch circle to roughly about 70 yards. Okay. So you got more pellets. Your pattern is denser. Okay. So now we just increase our, that 100 pellet count in a 10-inch circle by 10 yards. We just went from 60 to 70 yards, from just going from 8s to 8.5s. Okay. But by going down in pellet size, okay, you lose a little bit of energy. Okay. So now our 1.25 inch pellet penetration now drops to 82 yards. We lost 10 yards. We went from 92 to 82. Okay. We gained 10 yards in the pattern density, but we lost 10 yards in the pellet penetration. But now we have, so now our gap is roughly what is that? About a 15-yard gap now. So if we look at 9s, okay, if we look at 9s, we can get roughly, and you guys see this, a lot, the famous, at least 300 pellets, in a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. In our testing, we were able to get 310 pellets in a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. Okay. So now we started stepping back. Yeah. Now we start stepping back.
Not to interrupt, but just what's a pellet count in, say, like a number 6 Longbeard or a number 5 XR Longbeard? How many pellets is in that load?
Actually, you know what? Probably in a number 6, even if they did, probably, you're probably talking about maybe in a 2-ounce load,
right,
2.25, 450 pellets, maybe. Yeah. Something like that.
You're putting 300.
You're putting 300 at 9.
I'm sorry, 10, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to compare how, comparatively speaking.
No, and that's what it is. A standard lead load, a number 6 standard lead load, averages in a 1-ounce load about 222 pellets. So so if you do the math on that, 2-ounce load for 444. So you're getting 450 to 475 maybe, right, in a heavy load. And in a 2-ounce load, of number 9 TSS, you're getting 724.
And you're putting 300 at 40 yards in a 10-inch circle.
At 40 yards in a 10-inch circle.
At 20 yards, it's probably 500.
So I kind of took you off the rails there. So where's the number 9s? Where's your ballistic gel penetration?
Okay, so all right, so the number 9s, we can get 310 pellets in a 10-inch circle at 40. Okay, so now we need to step back and find out where we break that 100 pellet count threshold. Okay, we break that 100 pellet count threshold at over 70 yards. Okay. It was roughly about 72, 73 yards. We drop off of less than 100 pellets in a 10-inch circle with a 20 gauge at 70 yards, 72, 73 yards.
And that's with the number 9s. That's with the Indian Creek 555 or a 555.
Or a Jeb's Headhunter. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Both of them actually patterned very, very similar. Very consistent.
Yeah.
Yep. So now the ballistic gelatin, okay, now we have, the 1.25 inch penetration. We can get 1.25 inch penetration at exactly 72 yards with number 9s.
So you're right on. That's the money number right
That's
there.
the money.
That's the money. That's the money number. So in other words, at 72 yards, you can still put 100 pellets in a 10-inch circle and lethally kill a turkey at 72 yards with a 20 gauge, 2 3/4 ounce shell, 1 5/8 ounce load.
Jeez,
that's insane.
But if you made it a 3-inch, then you're putting more loads and you're increasing everything across the board.
Exactly. Increase your velocity, which increases your energy, which increases your penetration.
You're probably somewhere in the 80s.
Yes.
I don't even dare to ask how much TSS you put downrange to figure all that out. That's a lot of data.
A lot. The good, and I tell you what, guys, the good thing about it too is there is a lot of ballistic calculators that we were able to get our hands on as well too, and you can plug in density, velocity, and I mean we can geek out on it, and you can plug all that information in, your payload, your pellet count, velocity, energy, density, all of that. And literally you can start mapping a lot of that out and it'll calculate out your distance.
And we're talking maximum. We're talking on the high end of the spectrum, what it's usable for at the maximum distance. This is not talking at 20, 15, or 10 yards when you're rolling them in your face. This is just showing you what it can do at longer distances and what you're getting out of it.
And the good thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because, a big misconception that a lot of people take with TSS is like, well, I'm not wanting to snipe a bird. It's not about that. It's about being lethal. And yes, you can extend your range, but also what you'll do is with TSS compared to longbeard, how many of you, patterned a longbeard at 15, 20 yards? What does it do? It looks like a slug. TSS doesn't look that way.
Right.
If patterned correctly and if packed and, loaded correctly, you will have a very dense, even pattern, at 20 yards. You're not throwing a slug.
Well, it has to throw a slug close so that when it spreads at a long distance, where TSS doesn't have to do that because you're changing the consistency of those beads when they come out. So they have to be tight, close, and then as they go out, then they start to spread. Where TSS stays at that consistency and then works its way out from there.
Yeah. It maintains a consistent hornet's nest.
It's crazy because it works so well. It's almost mind-blowing what TSS actually does. When I had switched, like I had said before, from a 10 gauge to a 12 gauge, now I hunt a 20 gauge over and under. And just because it's so light, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just easy to carry, and I still have 2 shots instead of a single shot, and it's just light. And now I'm effective, like you just said. You literally just broke down my gun, and literally what it will do at a longer distance. You know what I'm saying? And I just shoot a 5.56 instead of a 5.55, but it's no difference. And I went through all those steps on my own. Like, what does it throw at 60, 70 yards?
Right.
I feel like we can have this conversation without bringing up choke. So you, on the internet and reading and talking to other people, you hear a lot of talks about people going through all different chokes and different constrictions and trying to find what's right. You keep saying 5.55, 5.55. Have you found that you're getting pretty consistent results with the 5.55? And have you tried something bigger and smaller? And what are you seeing with that?
Yeah, and the good thing about it is it's all preference. It really is. You get guys that hunt, deep timber, dark timber, thicker area, stuff like that, to where they know that their shots aren't going to be very far, maybe 30 yards or in. there's no reason to even pattern test at 40 yards. I mean, if they're never going to be setting up on, on a field edge or anything like that, they're going to be deep woods. And, a lot of guys like that, it's all preference, I mean, go with a 585, go with a 562 or something like that. That gives you a more consistent, pattern that's a lot more forgiving, to where, if you get a bird that sneaks in on you at 20 yards, you're still going to shoot a fairly, broad pattern, and you're going to drop a bird, but it'll maintain that consistency out to your maximum range.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people get sucked into the whole, what choke do I use at what, like we kind of geek out on it because we're big turkey hunters, right? But a lot of people, you can shoot an extra full choke and still do the same thing, or a full choke and do the same exact thing. There's no difference in it. We just geek out on it because we want to be able to shoot that.
And yeah, exactly. And a lot of people get fixated in that 10-inch circle. I mean, the more the better, the more the better, the more the better. No, it's your preference. It's your hunting style, And what I've found, with the 555 or the 562, it gives you a good consistent pattern that, I know that I'm not going to miss at 20 yards, or my son is not going to miss at 20 yards. But you know what? If we have a bird that hangs up at 40, 45, 50 yards and the gig is up, I know that he can send it and still have a dense pattern to be able to take that bird.
And that's important to have, especially for somebody that, a lot of the people that listen that might only be able to hunt 4 or 5 times a year, or, only be able to go out on the weekends. You don't want to have to worry about that. You just put a decent choke in, and if it comes to that point that you have to take that shot, you take that shot, and you're not have to worry about it, and you're still putting a bird, and you're still filling the freezer.
Yeah, and I'm one of the first ones to always say that, whenever a customer approaches us and asks, I don't give them an answer unless I ask a lot of questions. And the reason is, okay, what do you have? What's your make and model shotgun? So I know what you're toting. What do you currently have? What are you planning on using? Choke wise. What type of hunting are you doing? What do you plan on doing? What's your setup like? And I try to get as much information as I possibly can, because I want to make sure that I set them up the best that I can for success. I'm not going to worry about trying to squeeze in and modify my ammunition to be able to, shoot a slug in a 10-inch circle, if they're going to be in the woods and their maximum shot might be 20 yards. I don't want my ammunition to be the culprit of why they miss.
Right.
Well, that's the other thing that comes along with it too. If you have it too tight, then your missing odds are a lot higher at close range, and a lot of people don't realize that too. You have to be spot on.
How many people have you talked to that have missed a bird at 10 yards with an XR long
I see it all the
because
time.
they're shooting a golf ball at 10 yards?
Yeah.
When you guide guys and you have clients with you or use, I hunt a lot with youth. I bring a lot of use hunting. And when you use, and I was shooting a Longbeard XR with extra full choke, and you give them that gun with a red dot, if they're not right on it, they're going to miss. It's inevitable.
Exactly.
It's inevitable.
Exactly.
They are going to miss. And they got a lot going on and moving and so on and so forth. They're going to miss. So you have to have some type of consistency, like you're saying.
Yeah, and there's, there's even been a couple of customers too that, that approach me, and just out of curiosity and interested, and they want to talk and they want to learn and understand more. And I enjoy taking the time to be able to discuss, these type of things, with customers. And they'll send me, they're like, look, man, I'm really pleased with, my Winchester Longbeards, and, they'll show me patterns, and they're just flat out peppering, patterns at 40 yards. And I'm like, if it ain't broke, don't mess with it. Mm-hmm. If, the main thing is being confident in your setup. If you know that, hey, you know that your cutoff, if you're saying that your cutoff is, let's just say 40 yards, and you are flat out peppering a target at 40 yards with Winchester Longbeards, don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. If you've been dropping birds left and right, my ammunition isn't going to kill a bird any deader, So, but if you're interested in knowing what it's capable of and, checking out, how lethal it can be, or if you're just looking, it's kind of like me whenever I shoot archery. One of the biggest things that I enjoy, changing is broadheads. Seeing what, the next broadhead can do, seeing what this one can do, and, ammunition can be the same way, if be confident in what you're shooting, be comfortable, know what it's capable of, know what you're capable of. And if you're interested in trying something out, give it a try.
Absolutely.
That's a good analogy you make there too, because with the broadheads, because nowadays everybody wants to shoot bigger broadheads, like shooting like
heavier arrows,
but the bigger cutting diameter. In case you make a bad shot, you might catch that liver, catch the back of the lung, and it's a difference between you're covering the deer or not. Well, bad shots happen with turkeys too. Well, it only takes one pellet to kill a turkey, in theory, right? One pellet to the brain and he's dead. Well, now you're shooting 700 plus pellets as to oppose 400. You make that bad shot, maybe you peek, pull up on the gun, jerk the trigger. It's that much more of a chance of having the lucky pellet hit as to oppose,
We call it the golden pellet.
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit more forgiving when something goes wrong. I did have one more quick question though. With a lot of people using optics now, red dots and scopes and all that stuff, and we all know that TSS is not cheap. I always I'll shoot like a cheap lead number 8 skeet load, put that on paper to get my point of aim, point of impact, close with the dot. Do you see a huge? And then I always, of course, I check it with the good loads before. Do you find there to be a crazy difference between like a cheap skeet load when it comes to point of aim, point of impact?
Sometimes there is, and a lot of it depends upon the shooter and the shotgun.
Okay.
Ultimately, point of aim versus point of impact. You want them to match up.
Right.
And, I found that out with my 12 gauge, there for a while, I was, the old stubborn guy that was, I was like, I don't need an optic. Bead, and then I started realizing that I was planing left and right on my patterns. And, I'm like, I think I need to dial this in a little bit. And that's what I did. And that's the reason why I do like, optics, is because it gives you the opportunity. I'm a big fan, and I, by all means, no affiliation or anything. I run Swamp Fox Kingslayers and really like those optics. You got a red, you can get them in red or green. You can get a red dot or green dot, but then it also has the ring around the dot with the crosshairs on the outside. So I know that within that ring at 40 yards, if that bird's head is inside that ring, my entire pattern is covering that ring at 40 yards. Right. So it's, I'm not fixated on a specific dot, but I know that entire ring on that aperture of that Kingslayer, that if his head's in it, he's dead. So
that's what we like. We like dead turkeys.
We like dead turkeys.
Yep.
Aaron, I got one last question. We'll get off the business real quick, and we'll go in a little bit more fun. Is we always ask everybody, man. We ask everybody, what drives you outdoors?
Man, I tell you what. It's how I keep my sanity. I mean, it really is, that's where I can, that's where I can knock all the shit off my shoulders and, get out and unwind. It's where I keep my mind right. Man, I'm a big outdoorsman. This year, as a matter of fact, this year will be 23 years that I've been going out west, hunting. I get together with a couple buddies that I've grown up with my entire life. look forward to that trip every year, whether Wyoming, Colorado, whatever it may be, mule deer, pronghorn, elk. It's all DIY. I mean, I've never paid for a guide a day in my life. And, I mean, I enjoy the woodsmanship aspect of it. I'm also the deer hunter that doesn't run trail cams. I'm going to give them a try this year because I know that my son will be like a kid in a candy store, getting those pictures and stuff. So we're going to have fun with it, but to me, that's what it's all about, get out and have fun. I mean, if you're sitting out there in the woods and you're not enjoying it, get your mind right. I mean, that's what we're out there for. But to me, I mean, that's what I live for. I mean, I save up all my vacation time for hunting season. I mean, I allocate, X amount, for the family, and the rest of it is for springtime, fall time, winter time, so I can get out and about.
That's awesome. No, that's really what it's all about, being a true woodsman. And a lot of people don't even understand it. I don't want to get too crazy into it, but we talk about it all the time, is that the newer generations now, they don't know what it's like to hunt without a trail camera. Their entire lives, they've hunted with a trail camera, or like we used to hunt with trail timers and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of generational people that of this generation don't know how to be a woodsman without that stuff. And the simplicity of just going out and enjoying the outdoors is so important.
Yeah, and I love, and I tell you what, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I love, a lot of the times, unfortunately, I used to run a football program as well, a Pee Wee football program, local Pee Wee football program for a handful of years, and I finally hung it up this year. So I mean, this year I'm making up for lost time this year. There's going to be a lot of things dying this year, But that's what I enjoy doing. The little bit of time that I get a chance to get out, I love getting out, and I pretty much 99% of the time I hunt public land, and I love getting out. I love reading the terrain. I love reading sign. I love searching for fresh sign, searching for travel routes and corridors, determining how much hunting pressure has been in certain areas, and gauging my hunt around the pressure and knowing what these deer are going to do to be able to, slip around, pressure and stuff like that. And, travel routes and corridors between, bedding and feeding areas and tight spaces and stuff. I love reading that type of stuff. And, and I have a lot of buddies, that run trail cams and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love seeing the pictures and stuff like that. But on the flip side too, what I enjoy doing is I enjoy going out and not having the mindset of what I've seen on a picture dictate whether or not I'm going to pull the trigger. And if I have a decent buck, and I'll be honest, if I have a 115, 120 inch buck come by and he gets my blood pumping, he's going to die. And I don't want it to be dictated because I seen a 140 inch deer, right, on a trail cam 3 weeks ago, and
a good point.
It's huge.
I hunt for the moment, and if the moment's right, and if I want to pull the trigger, on a small buck, or if I want to pull the trigger on a doe and fill my doe tag, I'm going to do it. So.
We live by that.
You know what it sounds like to me?
Who's it?
We had Aaron on to talk about TSS, but I think we're going to have him back on to talk some deer in the near future.
Aaron, we truly appreciate you taking the time, man. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and get a hold of you to talk turkey? Because turkey seasons are starting to crack open here across the country, and I know guys are going to want to at least reach out to you, at least have some type of conversation. Why don't you lead them in the right direction?
I appreciate that, guys. As of right now, we're getting our website up and running, so this year's kind of been a whirlwind. We had to play the hurry up and wait game with the with getting our FFL, the ATF. So we got, it was a little bit later than we expected, but once we got the go ahead from the ATF, man, we hit the ground running. So, as of right now, until our website gets up and going, you can contact us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. You can look me up directly, Aaron Satterfield on Facebook, Smackerfield on Instagram. And we are working on getting our Satties set up on Facebook. We just got that up actually 2 days ago. So there is a Facebook page for Satties TSS Ammunition. You can look that up. Anyone who wants to reach out and talk, just instant message me. On any of those platforms, you can reach out. More than likely, I'll be standing at the loading bench, but I chat as I go. So, but yeah, feel free to reach out. We're taking care of orders that way. Just basically through social media right now until our website gets up and going. Then we can start accepting credit cards and stuff like that. We'll have apparel and everything on our website. And yeah, we're hitting the ground running. And this year is going to be a pivotal year.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to add the links down, and we'll tag you in all the stuff with the podcast so that they can click on the links. But we really appreciate you jumping on, Aaron. Great information. This is absolutely what we needed to kind of just solidify what is going on in the TSS world. We really appreciate it.
And I truly appreciate the opportunity. I know that, there's a lot of companies that pop up that are doing ammunition and stuff like that. And for you guys to take the opportunity to speak to me and stuff, that's truly appreciated. Me and my family, thank you for that.
Absolutely, man. And one of the things we like to do is keep it, small business. That's how we like to do it, because we're both small business owners, and we like to keep it small business and family owned. It's most important to us, and it's the only way that America is going to keep running the way it is. So
that's awesome. Amen, brother.
Well, we appreciate it, and everybody else, go and check out Aaron. And thanks for taking the ride right here on the Outdoor Drive.